Welcome to the Revolve Recap weekly podcast where we help the members of Revolve Church deepen their connection to God, God's family, and God's mission. And we help you stay in the loop with all things Revolve. Just like every week, I'm here, your host, David McCumber, and my faithful sidekick and friend, my co-host, Billy John Lackey. Right? Is that your middle name, John?
Yep, William John.
William John Lackey from the Irish coast.
No. The Isle of McDonegal.
So we are here, and we are just this morning
living the dream.
There's so much salt in my veins right now from that potluck last night.
Yeah.
But it was good.
It's like one of those days when you wake up and you're like, why are my eyes all puffy? Look like I got a fist fight last night. Like, did I get a fist fight?
Oh, man. Yeah.
What was your, not to put anybody on the spot, but what was your favorite thing you tried?
Oh, okay. That was actually going to be my intro question, but...
Was it really?
Yeah. But that's
well,
okay.
Looks like some of us are clairvoyant.
Yeah, some of us. You, Billy. So my favorite, I think who made the
spicy ramen?
Well, the spicy ramen.
That's what I made. I made the spicy ramen.
The shrimp and is it nasi goreng?
That was Dina. Dina made nasi goreng. I made mee goreng.
Yeah. So those two are my favorite. Which
Indonesia style.
When I'm in Southeast Asia, when I'm in Indonesia, those are. When they come out, you're like, oh yeah,
yes.
I was explaining to my my table that when you go on these trips to Southeast Asia, that there's really only like 3 or 4 things that come out. Like when you sit at the dinner table,
fish heads.
Yeah, and when miso goreng comes out, or the what is the
nasi goreng?
No, the ramen.
Mee goreng.
Mee goreng. When that comes out, I get so excited.
Well,
because it not only it
covers the flavor of other things.
Well, it's not only is it like tolerable, where it's like it's really good.
Yeah.
Like I like it. You know, where it's like the fish, it's like I can kind of tolerate it, but it's like it's kind of hard to eat with the bones and all that. But it's
if you can eat it with the mee goreng,
yes,
then it's like you get the flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So no, my question for you, we'll finish this discussion, but my question for the intro was, what are some of your favorite things that like you really enjoy when you go overseas, food wise? But what was your favorite thing last night?
Wow, I mean everything was really
also
good.
The mac and cheese. I think Sherry Olsen made it was really bad.
I didn't have any mac and cheese. This is one of those things I just didn't have because it was like
it was one of those things I went back for thirds and it was like, a lot of stuff's gone. Wow, there's some mac and cheese. I'll take that, and it was really good. But I stayed away from it at first because I wanted to like keep it real
for the kids.
Yeah.
I think everything was really good. But I think if I was going to pick something that I was like, oh, that was really good, and it was a new thing to try, because it's like, yeah, meatballs are always good. You know what I mean? That kind of idea. It was the lamb tagine. I don't know who made the lamb tagine, but the lamb tagine over couscous.
Yeah.
Was enjoyable.
I didn't take very much of it because I was afraid I wasn't going to like it.
Yeah.
But I really did like it.
Yeah, it was good.
Who made the lamb tagine?
If you know who made the lamb tagine,
let us know.
Let us know. Put it in the comments.
So the nasi goreng with shrimp was
Dina.
Mm-hmm. Well, just so you know, if you're listening to Revolve Recap and you're like, what the heck are they talking about? Last night we had prayer. We had prayer and potluck and
prayer.
I thought prayer was more important, so I put that first.
Save the best for last. That's why I put it last.
So what we did is we got together as a church and we learned about Islam, and then we ate some food that was inspired from some of the places where we have missionaries who are working, and then got together and prayed for our missionaries and the work that they are doing. And so it was a good night. And what I like about it, and this is kind of like a Revolve thing, is we don't do a lot of things in-house. But so if we do things in-house, like a dinner or a potluck, it's also very purposeful. And there was some learning involved and prayer and
a foot race.
There was a foot race with Jason versus all of the kids.
Yep. Yep.
And so I bet that I feel like Jason like probably woke up this morning and his knees all jacked up because he was like, I raised them kids.
As soon as he turned around and started running backwards, I was like, what Jason doesn't realize is one day he's going to be like 45 and then he's going to trip and he's going to like break his ankle doing that. And he's like, remember that time when I broke my ankle racing like a moron?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So do we want to do your favorite food from...
We just did it. Oh, something I like when I go
Yeah,
overseas?
that was going to be my intro question. Was kind of inspired by last night. What are some things that like
I like trying foods. I think that's one of the main things that I do enjoy. Is I like trying weird foods. Like I like going to a restaurant overseas, or even if we go to like an ethnic restaurant in like New York or something like that, and I want to know like what is the thing on the menu that Americans don't want to eat, but like all of you nationals want to get.
That's cool.
And so I like doing that, and so I do enjoy that. So even like when we would go up by where I grew up, there was like a Mexican place that was like really authentic that came in, and they had I think they had goat tacos, and it's like only like. I think it was Honduran. Only the Hondurans would order it. So I was like, I want the goat tacos because I don't like chicken tacos. I can get a taco
I know.
Bell.
I know that about you, and I think that's cool. I grew up a really picky eater.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of liked my own thing. I didn't like my food touching and all that, and I've kind of matured out of that. I think from traveling, but I'm not as brave as you.
Well,
I think
that's why they call me Brave Billy.
They do call you Brave Billy. I think I like. All I can think of is the girl from Brave with like the crazy red hair, and I just want to Photoshop your face onto her.
Oh man, you know what? You just said that, and I thought to myself, Eden has never seen that movie.
Really?
Eden would love that movie. Eden has a thing where she won't watch cartoons.
Oh, because they're like babyish.
It's like for babies, but then she'll like watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You're like, well, this is a cartoon.
Yeah. She's like, I only watch Family Guy. Eden, no.
But she would like Brave. I'll have to show her Brave. She'd really be into that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I like that. And I also just like experiencing new cultures. I like kind of getting lost. Gene and I were talking about this. We don't really enjoy normal vacations anymore.
Yeah.
And that's something that we struggle with. So we do our kids, so like we'll bring our kids on a cruise. They enjoy that kind of stuff. But even when Gina and I, before we had kids and we like would go down to Disney World, our favorite thing is we would walk around Animal Kingdom where you feel like you're in another country.
Yeah.
And we would just like be like, kind of pretend like we're in Tibet.
Yeah.
That kind of idea. And or going to Epcot and getting the unique foods from around the world, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So just culture. I like experiencing culture, food.
Yeah.
I like learning. I love asking questions about different cultures. I have no desire to go to Qatar and go to a Hilton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of idea.
Yeah. Although when I confess, when we were in Greece, so when our family left Greece was kind of a weird thing. There was a weird thing that happened on the island, and we were kind of requested to leave by the United States Embassy and all that. But my in-laws,
humble brag.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
I know. I had to sneak out in the middle of the night.
Humble brag.
Yep. If you're a long-time listener to Revolve, you'll know about the humble brag.
David always calls humble brags on me, but now I got one.
That was a good humble brag. But we went to Athens, and my in-laws for 2 or 3 nights paid for us to stay in a Marriott.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like...
Well, that's like different because it's like you're in Athens, and you want to be able to enjoy Athens and not be like, am I going to have a place to sleep tonight? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. So that was nice. But no, I get that. Like, I think, I'm trying to think of going overseas. I guess Iceland is probably a trip that I went on recently that wasn't like a quote unquote missions trip. It was just a vacation. And you do miss that, like, you're just eating at restaurants and you're not like, when you
have a national with you,
when you're going overseas and it's a ministry type trip, you're eating at homes and you're experiencing like this is what life is. Like, this is what time do they wake up in the morning, what time they go to bed at night. Like,
Right.
when we were hanging out with the Egyptians, and at like 11 o'clock, they're drinking coffee, and they're
Right.
like, we love it. And you're like,
Right.
this is a cultural thing
Yeah.
for them to be like that. So,
Yep, and then you think about the fact that we also or normally travel with people who are either cultural insiders or they've lived there a long time.
yeah.
And so that's a very different experience as well. Like when I was in Qatar, I wouldn't say that I had a Qatari experience because I was
Yeah.
at a hotel. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But we tried to eat at like the places where workers would eat and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Like
But-
McDonald's.
right, like McDowell's.
What did you eat at a McDonald's at all
No.
in Qatar? I wouldn't think so.
I don't think they had a McDonald's there.
Really? I remember just eating McDonald's in
Japan,
Philippines, maybe in Japan.
Hong Kong. We had McDonald's in Hong Kong.
Yeah, and they have like rice and noodles on the menu. I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of funny. So
On
all
a burger,
right.
though. It's rice and noodles on a burger.
So much carbs. So
That's
much
right.
carbs. Well, we had a blast last
Call it
night
the McLee.
at Potluck and Prayer. And so, yes, if you ever get a chance to go overseas and experience some new cultures, or even go to Seed Week in New York City, there's definitely some opportunities to try new foods, and it's fun.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Sorry, I was just yawning.
yeah, wow. Hope it's not the company. So, all right. Well, we're gonna look back.
Look
now.
back.
We're gonna get started on
Get started.
the real deal. Looking back yesterday,
Deal.
even further, because we already looked back at yesterday's potluck, but let's look back at the sermon.
From further back.
We want a king. You know what? The thing that I think really, I don't think was like a big takeaway, but one thing, like you said something, it really was like this like aha moment. So funny, like you're like, why am I 43 and I've never thought of this? The idea that like you think the Israelites rejecting God as king, like in Samuel is the first time that's happened.
Right.
And you're like, no, they've been rejecting God as king since.
God's like, Samuel's like, God, they want to reject you. And God's like, what else is new?
Yeah. And you're like, this has been going on since Adam and Eve. And it
Yeah.
was just like, you look through history and you're like, they've always been rejecting God as king. And I think that was like a real like eureka moment of like, God is, I don't want to say he's used to it, but
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
you know, and I think as I don't want to compare us to, you know, the giants of the Old Testament, but I think even in leadership,
Like the Nephilim.
in current leadership as a pastor, as an elder, we get discouraged when people maybe aren't growing as much or maturing, or you share the gospel with someone and they kind of reject it. You you do kind of take it personally, and it's like, and God's like, no, if you've been discipling this person for 6 months and they're still refusing to read the Bible every day, they're not rejecting us, they're rejecting Him. Mm-hmm. And that's
good.
a little freeing.
Yeah, that was
as
like
a leader.
That's kind of like Luke 10,
Yeah.
where he says, when they don't respond to you, they're not responding to me, and so
Yeah.
you can walk away freely.
So what are some of your thoughts, Billy?
Well, so we talked.
Anything you didn't get a chance to share? Do you
Well,
want to
I
share
really
extra?
wanted to share extra about the we had those three things I said at the end. Jesus is the leader you need. Don't ask for a King Saul, and then even when we are faithless, God is faithful, and because He can't change who He is. And I wanted to talk more about that second one. Don't ask for a King Saul, because I kind of didn't have my sermon be about that, because I was like, oh, this is going to be old news for people.
Yeah.
But then I had enough people afterwards make comments about that. I was like, man, I probably should have done my whole sermon on that topic of don't ask for a King Saul.
Okay.
Because it's really practical, this idea of, hey, I want something. I don't know if it will be good for me or bad for me. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And what's the process for that? And I was kind of struck by the fact that so many people, I was struck by the fact that they were struck by that, because I just kind of assumed that was something that people
Yeah.
had as part of their regular routine.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, elaborate a little bit more.
So let's say that you want something.
Yeah, just give us like a practical
You're
example.
like, I'm trying to decide if I should. Okay, I'll give you an example. So there's been a property that Gene and I have had our eye on for like 2 or 3 years. It went up for sale like 3 years ago. Somebody bought it because we thought it was priced too high. and the guy is going to be moving again. I wrote him a letter, and I was like, look, if you're ever interested in selling this, let us know before you put it on the market, that kind of idea. And amazingly, he actually called me, and he was like, yeah, I'm actually moving this summer to Oregon. And so we had lunch. Him and I went out to Lucky Bones, and so
Who paid for that lunch? Did you split
I
it?
did. I paid for it.
Yeah, well,
I paid for it
interesting.
because I'm an appropriate person.
You're a baller.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, go ahead.
And so just that idea. Oh, you know what? Actually, I went to pay for it, and I didn't have my wallet, and he wound up paying for it.
Classic Billy move.
Is it though?
You know how many times that's happened to me? I'm like, never.
No.
So sorry to interrupt your story.
No. So just that idea of where you say, okay, this property would be a sacrifice financially for us, but we've kind of can't get it out of our mind. And so you say to the Lord, okay, God, is this like something you want us to pursue, or is this really stupid?
Okay.
Is this something that we're going to get, and then in 5 years you're going to regret it?
Yeah.
That kind
It's
of
a
idea.
King Saul. Is it a King Saul?
Is it a King Saul? And so you get something like that, and I think the idea is we need a process for making this decision. And so I made a little acronym this morning: CPA.
CPA.
Check, pray, act. Check, pray, act. Okay? So the first thing, you have that idea in your brain. Let's use this property as an example. Lord, should I pursue this property? Okay. So you check the word. You say, okay, does the word say anything about this situation? So that means about your motives. So like from our perspective, I think that our motives are pure. We think about how it could be used for ministry because it has acreage. How, if the Lord ever expanded, not Revolve, but expanded our ministries. And let's say we wanted to start like a legitimate hub, like what Kevin and Leilani have, where there's maybe could partition property and you could have something where it could be used, build like a little hub or a training center, that kind of idea. So it's like, well, this could be used for ministry. It would also be a blessing to our family, just because you'd have a little more property, the kids could play, blah, 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 blah. So you go through that and you say, okay, are my motives pure in light of the word? Okay, I think they are. Does the word say anything about this that would be, this is a sin or this is wrong? In this situation, no. Right? This is not, it's kind of a non-moral issue. So you're checking the word, you're checking your heart motive, and you're involving God in the process the whole time. And the second thing is praying, Lord, should we do this? Okay, well, I felt like God was like, if you want to do it, do it.
Yeah.
And so then the second question is, Lord, how should we do this? And so that's why I said, you know what? I'm going to write this guy a letter. And if he writes me back, I'm going to take that as a green light.
Yeah.
And I wrote him a letter or an email rather. And like 2 days later, he called me. Mm-hmm. And so we had lunch. That's been like a couple months. And so I just wrote him again last week. And I said, hey, it's been a few months. I know you have a few months left until you retire and move. If possible, maybe my family and I could walk through the house so that we could get an idea of what you've done and come up with like a realistic offer. Again, it's another fleece.
Yeah.
And he wrote me back and he's like, hey, that sounds great. Let's wait till after Easter. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because he's a clergy as well. Another thing where it's like, okay, maybe the Lord's doing something here. He's also clergy. So Lord, should we do this? Lord, how should we do this? The other thing I'm praying is, Lord, will this work? Like if we do this, is this going to be a disaster? Is this going to be a money pit? These sorts of ideas. And so if it's not going to work, Lord, I want you to shut the door.
Yeah.
If this isn't going to work, shut the door. So I'm thinking, Lord, if this is going to lead me into sin, shut the door. Because I might not be aware of that. Right?
Yeah.
Lord, if this is going to lead me away from your glory, shut the door. In other words, if God has a purpose for why he wants me to stay where I am at my house, because I'm going to lead my neighbor across the street to the Lord. Okay, well then keep me here because that's more important than my house, that kind of idea. Lord, if this is going to be a distraction, shut the door. And so I pray about these things. If I were going to buy whatever, if I was going to buy like a toy, let's say that I was going to buy a Harley, not that I have any desire to buy a Harley, but let's say if I was going to buy a Harley, these are the things I'd be praying for. Yeah. Lord, is this a distraction? Is this a money pit? Is this something that's going to take my focus away that I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, now I'm looking at this instead of focusing on what I should be focusing on? Those are the things I'm praying. And then if it checks all the boxes and I've prayed, I'm going to walk forward with confidence. also believing that God will shut the door.
Yeah.
So that might look like, hey, we prayed and we can afford X amount of money, and I'm putting it out there, and I'm not gonna counter offer $100,000 more than I can afford.
Yeah.
That kind of idea.
Yeah.
And so that idea of check, pray, act, and just the entire time saying, Lord, don't give me a King Saul. I don't want a King Saul.
Yeah. So
I talked a lot there.
No, I think that's a great example, and I want to look at maybe like the opposite or the negative examples of that. So if you were to do something and you would start with check the word, if there was some sort of integrity conflict, say
you're swindling a widow out of her house because she
Yeah.
doesn't know how much her house is worth. And you're
Yes.
like, I could offer this lady $150,000. She doesn't even know.
yeah, and you're like, oh, this seems like this is an open door. God gave me an open door here, and then you look at scripture and you're like, okay, no, this is
God defends the cause of the widow, and now I'm sitting here taking advantage.
Yeah, so I think that would be kind of the negative side of that.
Yeah.
And then maybe the negative side, I want to say negative side, but with prayer, so you're saying, I'm going to pray about this. I'm going to pray that God's going to close this door if it's wrong. But then all day you're worried about it, and you're thinking about it, and you're stressing about it, and you're losing sleep over it.
Then you didn't actually pray
about it. So I think that prayer part of it is you have to pray about it and then give it in God's hands, because then if you're being anxious about it, then that's contrary to Scripture. Because
James
you're
1, right?
being anxious. Yes.
Yeah, well, in James 1, where he says, if any man lacks wisdom, he should ask, but then he shouldn't doubt.
Yeah.
It's like, so I'm going to ask for wisdom.
Yeah.
And I'm going to believe that if we go to this meeting and this guy's like, yeah, I'm looking to get at least $800,000.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, well,
Yeah.
that's not an option.
Yeah.
So obviously.
And then the next 3 weeks you're like moping around because the God didn't open that door. So
or wondering how much I can sell my kidney for or something like that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to look at kind of like the opposite, or the just so people could understand like what it looks like on the other hand.
Or not praying about it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. There's so many people who change jobs, change houses, change vocations, or make big purchases, and they never even pray, hey, God, should I do this?
Yeah.
Like when we had to replace our furnace, we were like, okay, you can get the $3,000 model, with such and such efficiency and blah, blah, blah. You can get the $5,000 model, and we prayed, Lord, which one should we get? Because it's his money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so those kinds of things, I think we forget that God cares about that stuff too. And I think often we don't think about stuff. We just are like, well, I want it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get it. Mm-hmm. I want to get that, whatever. You know what I mean?
Or
do I really need this, Lord?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
And then the last part of that is the act. Eventually, you have to pull the trigger. I think sometimes we, talking about like a new job or moving or something like that, eventually you have to act and trust and take a step in faith.
Yeah.
And we talk about that personally to one another. Like, I have this decision to make. Okay, well, let's pray about it for 7 days and see, where God is leading us. And, I think there's some wisdom in that, because, you think of like, Christian and Elena moving to New York City. They could just keep praying about it
for years,
praying about it and praying about it. And it's like, eventually I think you're just not being obedient to step out in faith to do what God's calling you to do. Because you're just like, I'm just praying about it. I'm just waiting for God to like really open that door, like a really big door. Right. And it's like, so there needs to be action as well.
Yeah.
So.
I think that idea is the faith requires action. And it's like, well, I could have just been like, oh, I'm going to pray that this guy, he emails me.
Yeah.
So he's not going to email you, but you can put it out there, and you have to take steps. You have to make those bold moves. You have to take risks, but they don't have to be foolish risks, and they shouldn't be risks you take divorced from God. Yeah. And it's not like God is mad at you if you get a Harley. You know what I mean? But you should pray about it. You should ask the Lord, is this something that I should do? On a very practical level, it's like, think about all of your impulse purchases on Amazon or whatever it might be. Think about how much less money you would spend if you said to yourself, I only purchase things from Amazon on the 15th and the 30th.
Yeah.
And so if I think I want something, I'm going to put it in my cart. and I'm not going to purchase it until the end of the month. And then by the time you get there at 30th, you're going to be like, I don't even know why I put that in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because so much of our lives are built on those reactions, those actions that aren't led by anything that's of substance. You know, it's driven by being covetous or whatever it might be.
Yeah. I remember when I preached on tithing like 2 years ago, I said something on the lines of, you never like give money to a missionary or to a cause and regret that.
Yeah.
You never go, oh, I wish I like got that $500 back that I gave to, you know, a missionary. But you know how many times I've regretted buying my boat? You know, like
Yes.
those purchases that are like,
Yes, exactly.
You know, and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing's such a money pit.
Right,
And
right.
it's like, I don't know. I think we're getting off topic a little bit.
No,
here,
but I think these are the things a lot of people don't even think about that.
Yeah.
They say, Lord, should I get this boat?
yeah.
You know?
So, all right. Well, do we want to hit that
No,
next thing?
let's go look up.
All right. So we're gonna take a quick little break here. Stretch your legs if you're driving. You know, stretch your arms.
You know?
Why? If you have a Tesla, I guess you could.
I guess I don't think anybody we know owns a Tesla.
I wanna drive a Tesla just to
Just to say you did it?
I don't know, just to see what it's like. All right, take a break. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed that break. If you don't know this, that song that you hear playing in the background is written by the one and only Scotty Cameron. So, smooth jazz with Scotty Cameron.
Jazz with
You know what I love about Scotty?
Scotty.
And you're going to agree with this, Billy. I know it. Every week, Scotty has like a new genre of music that he loves. He's like, guys, I've been really into Korean folk jazz. Really into it.
And that's how he always describes it too.
Uh-huh.
Like he can't just be like, I've been listening to folk jazz this week.
Yeah,
he
no,
has to say it's like,
I'm really into it.
but he describes
Like
it.
I just sold Kino so I could buy a Korean folk jazz album.
No, I feel like he describes it in such a way where he acts like he's been into it for 30 years.
It's life-changing.
Like it's his thing.
Yeah.
He does that. I remember we'll tell one Scotty story. Scotty, he texts us, this is like in the spring, 23, and he's like, and he's got a picture of these tubers called sunchokes.
Sunchokes, okay.
Some of you guys probably know what they are. Some of you can Google it. And he's like, it's my favorite time of the year. He said, this is when Brent and I go out. We pick the sunchokes. We make sunchoke stew or something like that.
No, he says, I looked forward to this time of the year every year when we go and harvest, when Brent and I go and harvest
The
sunchokes.
And
we were like, Scotty, we've known you for 10 years.
You've never talked about sunchokes.
Never. But he was like, this is the moment I've been waiting
because
for
he talked
all
about
year.
it. He talked about it like it was the Last Supper. He's like,
yes.
How I've yearned to celebrate this moment with you.
Yes. Yes.
How many times I've talked about it, dreamed about it. You guys know. And it was like that kind of deal. You guys know how much I look forward to with an earnest longing for the sunchoke harvest. And we were like, what are you talking about? He's like, I do. You guys know. I always talk about it. I'm like, you've never talked about it.
Never.
So
Never.
that's Scotty's thing. It's his thing. His thing is he gets really excited. He's a very passionate person.
Well, we liked it when Scotty was writing music and recording it because then
that was his thing for a while.
We got some music for our podcast. So, Scotty, get back into that. But Scotty's probably not listening to the podcast because he's listening to some
smooth Korean folk jazz.
Yep. So, what are you chewing on?
What you chewing on?
Better known as
What you chewing on?
What you chewing on?
David, can I ask you a question?
Chewing. See that little Chewbacca?
Oh, yeah.
Chewing on Chewbacca.
Chewing with Chewbacca.
Yeah. Do you remember that song? There was a song in the 90s. In the 90s when I was really into rock and roll.
With the with four non-blondes.
Yeah. Chewbacca. There was a song.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Who wrote that? Was that Doctor Strange or one of those?
I don't know.
Chewbacca.
If anyone grew up in Cape May, they would remember DOX, the radio station, and that would have been on DOX.
Chewie. I do remember that. I don't remember who it was by.
Yeah.
I feel like it was by Doctor Strange or one of those kind of Weird Al kind of bands.
Yeah.
David, can I ask you a question though?
Yep.
For real?
Yep. Yeah.
What you chewing on?
What you chewing on? Chewing.
What you chewing on, David?
So I'm chewing. Oh man, I chew on a lot of stuff. I like you. I think you chew on a lot too.
I do. I'm chewing on something different. And then the next day, I'm like, I should have written a book about that thing I was chewing on yesterday, but I don't remember what it was.
What am I chewing on? Chewing on.
Chewing.
So I've been doing this exercise. Last few weeks I've been talking about prayer. So that's like the big thing I've been chewing on is prayer. Mm-hmm. But the little part of prayer that I've been chewing on is I've been trying to do this activity.
Okay.
Exercise. Let's say spiritual discipline. Spiritual exercise. Okay. Before bed. Of replaying my day like a movie. So you just lay in bed and you just kind of like
let it run.
Walk through your day. And as you're doing that, you're like thanking God and praising God for all the things
that
happened in your day. But then at the same time, you're asking the Holy Spirit to guide you, to show you maybe areas in your life where you were drifting away or not being obedient to what God wants you to do. And I was really surprised or pleased or thankful for the precision of that, where when you're laying in bed and you're replaying your day, and you pray like that, and you're asking God to reveal those things to you. It's not like you had such a crappy day, you're an idiot all day. God, the Holy Spirit is super precise. Of like, you said this sentence, and to Bill, and maybe you should follow up and apologize. Mm-hmm. And I really, So, last night I was laying in bed and it was like 3 things that were just like, God brought them to my attention. And I didn't feel this like weight of guilt of like, I'm such a loser. But it was just like, you know what? Maybe I need to follow up with this person, or maybe I just need to, ask forgiveness from the Lord. But it was like, I don't know, it was just really beautiful. And I just think it's a cool thing that I've been trying for the last couple of days of just, again, I think I talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, just ending my day in prayer and starting my day in prayer instead of just like ending my day watching Netflix and then crawling into bed. But this reflective prayer of thinking about my day. So
I like that idea. I think that I try to do that in the morning, but then I forget a lot of what happened.
Yeah.
And so I think that idea of saying, I'm going to lay in bed and I'm just going to go through the day. I got up, I read this in my Bible, you know, and then I did X, Y, Z, and you kind of go
this is what happened at church. And then after church, we, did this and again, prayer is just talking to God. And we sometimes...
It's like you would talk to your spouse. Hey, what was your day like?
Yeah, and you're just going through, I went to the hockey game and we did this, and, I wanted to punch this guy in the face.
Had some sunchoke stew.
Yeah.
Which I look forward to so much.
Every year I long for it. See, tonight I'm going to lay in bed and I'm going to feel convicted that I shouldn't have made fun of Scotty on the podcast.
We're not making fun of Scotty. I'm anticipating with great earnest longing that Scotty's going to make me sunchoke stew this spring.
He will. What about you? What you chewing on?
I like what that you shared. This is what I'm chewing on, David.
Thank you. That felt very heartfelt. I like what you're sharing. That was nice.
Now I'm thinking about it. I kind of want to keep chewing on it.
But you can't, because it's what you chewing on, not what your buddy chewing on.
So this is what I was chewing on in relation to your chewing.
Okay.
This was my Chewbacca to the chewy chew. Is I wonder if, and I think I already know my answer, but I wonder if the existence of technology makes what you just described so much harder.
Okay.
Because it's almost like...
What if you just tweet your whole day, and then at the end of the day, you just read your tweets?
Yeah, well, because I think it's like this idea, that's an option. I feel like it's this idea that because of technology, you actually are able to accomplish more than maybe you should. Like you have more conversations than you should. You do more things than you should. You are inundated with more information than your brain can handle.
Yeah.
And then it's like you step back and you're like, what happened today?
Yeah.
Because you're so overwhelmed with 10,000 small things.
Yeah, you've read 10 articles, you're in 15
Right.
different text conversations.
Right. Whereas like if you were on a boat in the middle of nowhere and you had no cell phone service, you'd be like, well, we got up, we made some breakfast, we fished for a little bit,
Yeah.
got a sea bass,
Yeah.
cooked that thing up.
Well, I don't even think being on a boat in the middle of nowhere. Just imagine if your day you just didn't have a cell phone.
Well, yeah.
And the internet.
Well, I just meant the idea that it's hard for people to imagine that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unless they don't have signal. Then they
Yeah.
can imagine it.
Yeah.
And they freak out.
Mm-hmm.
So just that idea of it goes back to kind of what I'm thinking about.
Okay.
Your chewing released to my chewing. So I'm going to flip mine because I had two things. The first thing I want to talk about is simplicity.
Yeah.
Thinking about this idea of simplicity. The reason it got me thinking is because, see, simplicity and my second thing, consistency, they go together. Okay, I can't separate them. All right, I'm going to start with consistency. I changed my mind. This is what I'm chewing on. Consistency is greater than intensity. And so I read a book a couple years ago. I didn't read it. I skimmed it. I don't want to lie. Get convicted later during my prayer time.
Reflection, yeah.
I skimmed it, and it was called Simple Six. And basically, it was like how to stay in shape over the age of 40.
Okay.
And the guy was arguing that the best way to stay in shape for life is, he said, you do something like go for walks, ride bikes, a half hour a day, walk your dog, whatever it might be. And then there's like 6 basic motions, like a pull up, a push, a squat, a hinge, these different things.
Yeah.
And he basically said, doing 15 minutes, in addition to the 30 minutes of walking, doing 15 minutes of a workout where you hit those 6 basic motions, doing that 5-6 days a week, even though it's only 15 minutes, is what's going on back there? Jen, are you making a salad? What are you doing? What is Jen doing?
I don't know.
Jen is like, I think she might be chopping.
She's running a printing press.
Yeah. Gutenberg printing press. I lost my train of thought.
So the simplicity or the consistency
Of working out,
these
yes.
15-minute workouts is going to be better than doing some like crazy Murph wad where
So you're better off working out 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, than once or twice a week. And this is scientifically proven. Than once or twice a week doing like some I'm going to vomit workout where you crush it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But so I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, this is true of every area of life.
Uh-huh.
Hear me out, okay?
We're listening.
Hear me out. You hear
I'm
me
here.
out?
I got nowhere to
Okay.
go. I'm
Everybody
consistently
wants to
here
have,
for you,
yes,
Billy.
yes. Everybody wants to have an intense quiet time where you're like weeping and, it's like, the spirit showed up. And you know what's better than that? Consistently having a daily quiet time.
Yeah.
7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can either wait for one mountaintop experience or you can walk with Jesus in the valley every day. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? You think about your spouse. I'm talking to you guys who are married now. I'm telling you this as a husband of 20 years. David has been a husband for how many years? 24 years. Listen, consistently loving your wife is better than having some crazy romantic escapade once a week. You know what I mean? It's better to consistently, daily engage with, talk with, spend time with, tell them you love them, give them a hug, than be like, well, Thursday's date night, so I'm just going to be a total moron the other 6 days of the week. Consistency is better than intensity. You know what I mean? When you think about dieting, like my big problem with dieting has always been like, I am going to do Atkins. You know what's better than doing an intense diet like that, what you're not going to stick to? Just keeping pace.
Yeah, don't eat a whole pizza.
Yeah, just eat 2 pieces of pizza and a salad, or a piece of pizza and a salad, instead of eating 6 pieces. And so consistency versus intensity. And it really got me thinking about the simplicity of reading the Bible. And you realize that we think like, man, if I really want to understand fill in the blank topic about God, I need to read this 800-page tome. And it's like, what you need to do? That's nothing wrong with that. But that's so overwhelming and it's really whatever. What you really need to do is consistently and simply spend time in the Word. And I just love that thing that Drew told us about. Just as you read the Bible, just highlight something about God, a biblical action principle for living, and something that points to Jesus.
Uh-huh.
And if you just did that and you just kept reading the Bible on repeat, man, it would be so much more beautiful than being like, well, last year I read Calvin's Institutes and this year I'm going to read this and that.
Yeah.
Just consistently read the Bible.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the simplicity of that highlighting and the simplicity of the discovery study or SOAPs. What's my summary? What are my observations? What's my application prayer? And this verse came to mind, Ecclesiastes 12:12. But my child, let me give you some further advice. Be careful, for writing books is endless, and much study wears you out.
Yeah.
And just that idea of like, you know what? Consistency, just keep going. Keep going. One step, simple life.
Yep.
Phil Robertson would say,
Yep.
all that simple life. How's he talk? But that death, burial, resurrection power.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think it goes, that's that Francis Chan illustration where he talks about how we all want to raise an elephant, but really
Just need rabbits.
It just raise rabbits. It's like we all want that big ministry, that big thing, and it's like, you know what? If you just made one disciple every year who made a disciple every year, in 10 years you'd have 50,000 or whatever the number is.
Everybody would rather be like, I planted an orphanage than over the course of my life, I temporarily fostered 25 kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, which one? But it's like consistency over intensity.
Yeah.
Why are we so obsessed with that? Like, why are we so much more drawn? It's because of pride. You know what I mean? We're so much more drawn to being like the focus of whatever instead of just being consistent.
I think it's a God complex. It goes back to the Garden of Eden. We want to be God.
Yeah.
And, God does those big things, and we want to do the big things that God does. You think of the Tower of Babel and,
Just
that
going to
kind
make
of
this
stuff.
tower.
Yeah.
Don't worry about your stupid tower.
There was I remember Ray Comfort saying one time about Elvis dying and falling, becoming a drug addict and falling under the pressure of all that praise.
Yeah.
It's like we're not built to take on the praise of men like Elvis or these celebrities. And
These
that's
celebrity
why
pastors, they can't live up.
Yeah, you can't bear that. That's God. It's like we are meant for something. God's meant for something, and when we try to be that celebrity pastor, we can't. We buckle under the weight of that praise.
Well, you were telling me something about that last week. I feel like it was something you listened to on John Mark Comer was talking about on the podcast, and he was saying how about preachers. Do you remember? Maybe you could share that. You were saying how like the average preacher just can't compete because people are so used to listening to Tim Keller and.
Oh yeah, I mean you can't as the average preacher, you figure,
average church is like 70 people.
God, you have guys like Tim Keller and Matt Chandler and Francis Chan. These guys are like, they're just gifted communicators, and it's like, how can the average guy, like Bill, you're a very gifted communicator as well.
I'm no Francis Chan in terms of my illustrations.
But it's like if I was to play in a church, preaching isn't really my strong suit. And it's like, I wouldn't be able to commit, and you think about these pastors of small little churches of 50 people, they can't compete with Matt Chandler and Francis Chan. And so it's like.
And some of these guys are so smart.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was young, I used to think I was so smart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, oh, that guy knows 7 dead languages and 3 living languages.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
someone
he's
like
on
Heiser,
his 18th
who's like,
book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's really good at communicating to normal people.
Yeah.
But
that's what God has. That's his path, and our path isn't always to do that. But I love that consistency. I have it written.
Consistency is better than intensity.
Yeah. So it would be better if I was to disciple one guy for a year, for the rest of my life, would be better than trying to lead like 1,000-person seminar twice a year or something.
Yeah.
But that 1,000-person seminar feels really cool.
Yeah. Or yes, it feels really neat. Or another thing, but it's a lot cheaper to just meet with 2 guys.
Yeah.
But the other thing is just even practically, maybe some of you guys have noticed that a certain elder who will remain nameless, he over the last year, Breton, he lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And you ask Breton, what did you do to lose weight? He just stopped eating after dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that was the big thing. It's like he didn't start only eating alfalfa sprouts.
Yeah.
It's like he just stopped eating after dinner.
Yeah.
And it's like consistency over intensity.
But then there's guys like me who are like, you know what I'm going to do to lose weight? I'm only going to eat potatoes for 100 days. And then it's like
intensity.
And it's like,
and then
why?
you give up after
you
20.
give up. You
or
give
whatever
up
it might
at
be.
20, like 4.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, wow, that's good. Good stuff, Billy. Well, chew on that. Where are you balancing intensity and consistency in your life? And really ask God right now. We're just going to take a quick break, but ask God, where can I be more consistent, and where am I maybe just looking for intensity where consistency is really where God wants me, and whether it's spiritual things or physical things.
Parenting.
Yep. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to finish this up. We're going to land this plane.
Crash it. Like a motor.
Jeez.
Make the kick. Well, listen, so I feel like every day, like 3 times last week, there was like a plane thing made news. It was like a Boeing took off and its wheel fell off.
Any article that comes across my desk that deals with planes,
You just don't read it.
I do not read it.
Because then you're never going to want to fly.
I'll never fly again.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of flying, but I definitely am not when I get on the ferry, I'm like, hey, I'm going on the ferry, and
Right.
I'm not that way with flying. I'm a little bit like, oh, okay.
This is a hunk of metal in the air.
Yeah. Hope that pilot isn't like fighting with his wife.
Seriously.
So,
Look ahead.
Look ahead. So, 1 Samuel 9 and 10. You're going to do a double chapter
I
this
don't
week.
know. I just kind of feel like I should, because otherwise we're going to be in 1 and 2 Samuel for like a year and a half.
What else you got?
Do you
going
guys
on?
care?
What else you got going on?
I don't know.
You really got to get into Ruth.
I'm just consistently chugging along.
I just want to really dive into Jude and
the Nephilim.
Actually, we were in Jude for a long time in our men's Bible study.
Yep.
We were in Jude for a long time.
Well, we like to be consistent.
Yep. So 1 Samuel 9 and 10.
I think so.
What is that? Is that David yet? Are we at David and Goliath
this
yet?
is when Saul's looking for his donkey and he gets anointed king.
Such a funny way to say it.
Well,
so
it's even better if you read it in the King James, because it doesn't say donkey.
When Saul's looking for his donkey and he gets anointed king, it's like, oh, it's that chapter in the book where Bill stepped in poop and then married Gina. And you're like, how do these two go together?
Well, you have to think it's kind of funny, because like in the King James, it's literally like Saul can't find his.
Yeah.
Let's make him king.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's just hilarious. So, so you could read 1 Samuel 9 and 10 to get yourself ready for that. And the other thing we want to remind you guys is today is the first day of Ramadan. Okay. And so if you go to revolvechurchnj.com/Ramadan, Ramadan.
I'll put a link in there.
Thank you, David. You'll see that there's going to be a little bit of a prayer guide and a little explanation of what Ramadan's all about. Basically during Ramadan, Muslims around the world fast from sunrise to sunset to discipline the flesh, to seek Allah. And we're going to pray for them as they do that the Lord would lead them to Isa al-Masih, Jesus, the Messiah.
And if you have friends who are Muslim, who are participating in Ramadan, which they most likely are, use this as an opportunity to ask them questions. What are you learning in this time? What do you think God's teaching you?
Ooh, that's great, David.
Those are great, just conversations to start. Don't be afraid to just ask questions and have conversations with people. That's a good way to have spiritual conversations. What are you learning in this time of Ramadan? Why do you do this? What's the purpose of it? What's God teaching you? These are good questions to ask.
Yeah.
To just spark up conversation.
Yeah, what are you doing? Why do you do it? What's the significance? Oh, okay. Well, what is Allah showing you while you do it?
Yep. I think we fear having those conversations as Americans, but you'll find that people who are practicing Muslims like talking about it.
Yeah, they don't mind at all.
So, and you probably don't know the answer, so it's good to ask, because we don't really know a lot about Islam. So it's good to just ask questions.
It's good.
Thanks, Bill. That was good. That felt really. That's
good.
You
did a good job, David.
Thanks, buddy.
David, you know what I like about you?
What do you like about me?
You're so consistent.
I am consistent.
Except for with that potato idea, that was a little intense.
Yeah.
But Dave is a consistent friend, right? Consistent podcast host, consistent worship leader. What else are you consistent at? Loves pretzels and cranberry juice consistently.
Yeah. Way to crash and burn that ending. You guys have a good week. We're out.
Peace.